From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Jason Reynolds was tricked into becoming a reader and writer when his aunt gave him many books that went unappreciated for years until he discovered poetry and the pull of the written word. He is a graduate of the University of Maryland with a BA in English and a concentration in writing and rhetoric. He moved to Brooklyn after graduation, and he published his first book in 2009. My Name is Jason, Mine Too, co-written with his friend and artist Jason Douglas Griffin. Reynolds won the Coretta Scott King Award, the John Steptoe Award for New Talent for his 2014 novel, When I Was the Greatest, and received the Coretta Scott King honor for Boy in the Black Suit and also All-American Boys, co-written with Brendan Kiley. That book was also the first Walter Award given by the organization We Need Diverse Books, named for the Ambassador for Young People's Literature, Walter Dean Myers. He is a writer who practices every day and strives to improve his powerful stories that never bore young readers. His stories are crazy and all about, and above all, real. You can find his self-described ramblings at jasonwritesbooks.com. We know Jason well at the Young Reader Center. We've been privileged to have him, and I know you will enjoy his remarks. Thank you.
Hey, everybody, what's happening? Y'all good? All right. So, you know, it's funny, I don't have anything prepared, so we just gonna wing it and see what happens. And it's being taped, which makes it even funnier. Sorry. What I want to say, though, most importantly, is I want to give just a bit of background about why it is I'm here today, how it is I came to all this stuff, and then I'm going to touch on Ghost, the new book Ghost. Anybody heard about it, know about it? All right, if you don't know about it, think about knowing about it. This is what it looks like. And then we'll take some questions, and then we out of here. Nothing major. All right. So there's this poem, right? It starts off, when my love swears that she is made of truth, I do believe her, though I know she lies, that she may see me as some untutored youth, unlearned of the world's false subtleties. That is William Shakespeare. That is not what I grew up on, right? So like I know William Shakespeare now, and we can run all of William Shakespeare's plays, and I can tell you all of William Shakespeare's sonnets, and I can recite all of the characters and all this, that, and the third. But when I was 15, 14, 13, 12, 11 years old, nobody checking for William Shakespeare. All my teachers were like, yo, we got to get you on this Shakespeare thing. And I'm like, Shakespeare don't sound nothing like me. And furthermore, Shakespeare ain't speaking English. And my teachers are like, no, this is English. And I'm like, the word just ain't spelled J-V-S-T. And my teachers are like, no, the V in Shakespearean English is a U. And I'm like, well, that seems a little silly, because that spells jivist, and jivist ain't no word I ever heard, right? Another poem. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. There are tacks in its splinters. You know, places where there's no carpet bed, right? So we all know that's mother to son. Some of us know. All of us should know. Mother to son, Langston Hughes. I ain't grew up on that either, right? I'd like to tell you that I did, but the truth of the matter is I didn't. I love Langston Hughes now, obviously, but when I was young, when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I wasn't checking for Langston Hughes either. What I was sort of into was, you know, a poem that went like this. Once upon a time, not long ago, when people wore pajamas and lived life slow, when laws were stern and justice stood and people were behaving like they ought to good, there was a little boy that was misled by another little boy, and this is what he said. Me and you, Ty, we gonna make some cash by robbing old folks and making a dash. Now, that was a poem that I loved. It was written by a man named Slick Rick. And Slick Rick, for those who don't know, is a rapper. Hip hop saved my life. Hip hop saved the lives of an entire generation. And all of our parents during this time were saying that hip-hop was the thing that was going to ruin us. They were steamrolling our cassette tapes on television, banning our music, telling us that hip-hop was only going to last 5 years. You couldn't win an award for it. There were no music videos. If you were on MTV, which is a brand new thing, you were Michael Jackson and/or Prince, and that was it. Right? Eventually, of course, we know that hip-hop became the thing that is driving young youth culture around the entire world. A thing that they said would last 5 years is driving youth culture around the world. The biggest play right now, and arguably in Broadway history, we'll wait and see, is Hamilton, a historic play driven by hip-hop. The biggest biopic in history is Straight Outta Compton, which is the story of the most controversial rap group in history, right? It can no longer be denied, and fortunately for me, it was the thing that gave me everything that I have today, because they were the YA authors of my generation. The rappers were telling the stories of the kids who grew up like me. You figure the 1980s and the early 1990s, when all the three major prongs of my generation, specifically you growing up in a community of color or a lower income community, you had drugs, specifically crack cocaine, which I know we're all aware of. For the young folks in the room, I'm so glad that you were born in this generation. The second thing was the beginning of what we now know as HIV and AIDS. And I'm sure for the old people in the room, you remember how frightening it was, how they thought that it was airborne. My next door neighbor passed away from it, and my father went to go see him and had to put on a quarantine suit because they were afraid you could get it by touching anything that he touched. Right? And the third thing that happened during this generation was the beginning of what we now know as hip-hop music, which was a direct answer to the issues that were happening in the community. Now, for young Jason, a kid who was growing up in this neighborhood and in these communities, when I would go to school and a teacher says you got to read To Kill a Mockingbird, a kid like me says, there are no Atticus Finches in my neighborhood, I'm not interested. The teacher says you got to read Moby Dick, and a guy like me says, Captain Ahab does not exist in my world. I've never even seen a whale. I've never even seen a boat, right? Why would I want to read that? The teacher says, we want you to read Lord of the Flies. And I say, Lord of the Flies? I live Lord of the Flies. Ain't no point in me reading that book. The teacher said, we want you to read Don Quixote. I remember back in the day, the textbooks had excerpts, right? We want you to read Don Quixote. And I say, oh man, it's about a knight who's imagining a windmill is a dragon, and I think to myself, but I know dragons in real life people who breathe fire on my block. Why would I want to read that? But what the rappers did was they created imagery around my life. They created a framework for us to deal with and interact with to synthesize our realities. So what I did is I went to the store, and this is when my life changed. I went to the store. I bought a cassette tape, because back in the day, for the young folks in the room, you had to go to the store to buy music, right? You had to be active to buy music. And I walked in and I bought Queen Latifah's Black Rain, right? I know many of us know Queen Latifah as like a personality, right? Like an actress or a talk show host, a model now, right? But when I grew up, Queen Latifah was a rapper, and not only was she a rapper, she was one of the best rappers of all time, still is one of the best rappers of all time. And so I go to the store and I buy Queen Latifah's Black Rain. And I get home, and I have an older brother, and for all the older siblings in the room, you know how you don't like your younger sibling to touch any of your stuff. For the young kids who have younger siblings, take it easy on your little brother or your little sister. I had an older brother, he wasn't home, and I had my new cassette tape, my first one that I bought with my own money, saved up my lunch money, and I walked into his room, and I took his Walkman. And then for the kids in the room, the Walkman was basically the iPod pre, right? We're talking about the before. When we had a little box, and you put it on your hip, it was like this. You put it on your hip, put the tape in there, put your headphones on. And I have my cassette tape, and I opened it up. There was a plastic on it, y'all remember, and it took like 45 minutes to get the plastic. You like trying to get the plastic off of it. It's like when you buy scissors, and you got to have scissors to open up scissors. This is a strange sort of thing that nobody really wants you to have what you just bought. So I'm like trying to get the plastic off, and I finally get the plastic off, and I open it up, and I'm like, here it is. It's like the Holy Grail. There's light coming out of it, right? And I'm like staring at it, and I pull out my liner notes, because the liner notes, for the kids in the room, the liner notes are a pamphlet that came with every single album that had the lyrics written on it for every single song. So I pull it out, and I open it up, and it's this big, and you unfold it, and it's this long, and I sit sit down and I push play and I listen to Queen Latifah start rapping and I start reading along to every single lyric. And after the album was over, I read the lyrics again, but this time without the music. And then I realized that Queen Latifah was writing poetry, that Tupac was writing poetry, that Nas and Slick Rick and Public Enemy and NWA were all writing poems, and that I could figure out then how to take the academic part of my life and the leisure part of my life to connect them by saying Queen Latifah and Maya Angelou are doing the exact same thing. It just sounds a little different, but the intention is exactly the same, and that Tupac and Langston Hughes are doing the exact same thing for the exact same reason. It just sounds a little different. It's written for me, and I decided then perhaps I'll write poems. I ain't gonna read these books though, but I will write poems. I did not read a novel until I was 17 years old. None. Not proud of it, but it speaks to what was happening in the industry. From 1980 to 1999, there's a gap there for the kids in my community. There's a gap. We had Walter Dean Myers, thankfully, but most of the books that we read were about the 1970s and the 1960s. There were no books in the 80s about the 80s. No books in the 90s about the 90s. Now kids today have an opportunity to see themselves as they're living, see their lives as they're living their lives today. That's all I want to do. That's all I've been trying to do. That's all my comrades are trying to do. That's what I'm here for. That's it. Now, for this book, Ghost, here's the thing. I wrote it for a few reasons. Number one, kids all around the world, specifically kids of color, do more than play basketball. First thing first. And that was important for me to say. I wanted to write a sports book. The easy default was to say, I'm gonna write a basketball book. But I figured Kwame got it covered, right? Check it off, right? It's like that box has been checked. Kwame's holding that down pretty good. So I said, well, look, let's figure out a way to tell a different story, because I was on the track team. And I always found it funny when I would talk to all my athlete friends, like the football players, the basketball players, my buddies now who are in the gym every day because we're getting older and they feeling insecure, and so they get in there pumping it up, right? And I always tell them, because you always see these cats and it's like, oh, you got all these muscles up here and you got these little stick legs. Why you ain't working out in your leg? Why you ain't running? How's your wind? And they say, man, ain't nobody trying to run. I say, why you don't want to run? And they say, man, running is too hard. It's too hard to run. And I say, what it really is that running is basically about you being comfortable with the feeling of suffocation. Like, that's what running is about. Running is the most mental activity of all the sports, because in order for you to win, or in order for you to even complete a race, you have got to come to grips with the fact that you are going to feel like you are dying. You won't die, but you are going to feel like you are. The reason that most of us don't like to work out is because once you run like the first 15 steps, it starts burning, right? And you're like, Lord, I can't pass out here on the track. I got kids, I can't pass out on the track. But the truth is, the human body is incredible, because what happens is, after a while, the lungs learn to expand. Your body adapts to the discomfort, and you can push through. And then you're all good. And so what I wanted to do was tell a story about a young man who had dealt with some trauma in his life. A young man who had gotten used to the feeling of suffocation, right? Literally, there are kids in your communities all over the country, no matter where you are, where you're from or where you live, whose normalcy is trauma, who have gotten used to it and who don't know that it's trauma because it's normative behavior. It's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, right? I always talk about police brutality because I wrote a book called All American Boys. I hope you've heard of it. I hope you read it. But there's a story that Brendan and I always tell about when I experience an issue with the police. And the end of that story, I always say, the hardest part about that experience is to come to grips with the fact that I never ever spoke about it. Never told my mother, never told my siblings, never told my pops until last year, 16 years after it happened. And the reason why is because for us, it was just Tuesday. Right? I had a 25-year-old buddy recently tell me, man, I just realized that I've been living, my entire life has been traumatic. Grew up in Brooklyn. My whole life has been traumatic, and I did not know that. And so the decisions that I make and the things that I do are coming from a place of trauma, because I've never had the opportunity to deal with it or even know that this wasn't normal, that this wasn't healthy. And so what I wanted to do is say, what if I took a character who experiences trauma early, who chalks it up to just life, and then finds himself on a track team? Now he has an opportunity to run. And there are kids in your communities where running is normal. And so how can I put this character in a situation where a coach, his new friends, the people around him can bump him to the left and say, well, look, we can decide what we're running for. We can be running from, or we can be running toward. And now we have an opportunity to make up our minds about what that's going to be. That's what Ghost is about. That's what this is the first book of a 4-book series. That's what the whole track series is about, following 4 middle schoolers as they deal with this concept of running and what running means to each of them individually, based around their experiences in their homes and in their communities. And that's it. That's all. That's all I'm gonna say. So we're gonna take some questions. I hope that was all right for y'all. I like to get in and get out. We ain't about to drag it out, you know. Any questions? Yep. You said what? Yeah, you can have it. Any other questions? You know what I mean? Closed mouth don't get fed. You know? Closed mouth don't get fed. What you got, brother?
Who's your favorite?
Your name's Joey, ain't it? Hey, my man Joey. Let's hear it.
Who's your favorite hip hop artist today?
Who's my favorite hip hop artist today? From your generation or from my generation?
My generation.
From your generation? Oh man, it's tough. I like a lot of people in your generation, honestly. I'm not one of these old people who be like, ugh, right? Because that's what they did to us, right? I like Kendrick. I like J. Cole. I think Drake makes jams. I don't know if we could put him in the hip hop category, but he makes good songs, that's for sure. The brother make jams. I don't know, you know. I like, there's a guy named Joey. I can't say his last name though, because it's a curse word. You know what I'm saying?
The dollar sign?
What'd you say? There you go. My man. My man Joey. Joey's good. Who you like? Joey. You like Joey?
Yeah, Drake and Joey.
Good, man. You got good taste, Joey. You got good taste. You my man. I appreciate you, man. Any other questions? Yep. Y'all gonna have to pass it up. We gotta play community, right? So everybody gotta pass it up if she says something. Let's act like we family in here.
Sequel to All American Boys?
Okay.
You left me hanging at the end.
So okay, so let's address it. Let's address it. So the question is there gonna be a sequel to All American Boys? Because I left her hanging at the end. Brendan and I left her hanging at the end. Here's the answer. No. And there's not. And the reason why is because the sequel is not for us to write. The sequel is for you to write. Right? What happens next is on everybody in this room. And which is the point, right? It's like we led you there, but whatever is happening on the page after that is up to the people in here, and the people out there, and the people in this country, the people at the White House. It's about all of us figuring out what's gonna happen, what's the next page of that story. So we gotta figure out what that's gonna be. We all gotta write that one together. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
If someone refers to you as a hip hop artist, is that okay with you? Do you feel that's complex, or do you just say, "Yeah, I am a hip hop artist"?
I think it's complex.
Okay.
I think I am of the hip hop community. I am of the hip hop generation, and I am a hip hop enthusiast. And so hip hop influences every single thing that I do, especially when it comes to my art. But there are people who put in a lot of work. Specifically as MCs, so that this is going to get complicated, right? So we could sort of stratify that as like, are you a hip hop artist umbrella wise? Are you an MC? Are you a breaker? Are you this, that, and the third? So I guess on the umbrella level, I would say yes. I guess from the umbrella standpoint, I'd say I'm a hip hop artist in terms of I'm an artist that came through the hip hop vessel and the hip hop generation. I'm just not an MC, and I would never claim that because there are people who work way too hard at that. The same way that I wouldn't claim that I'm a poet anymore because there are people who work very hard who don't get the credit they deserve, who dedicate themselves to poetry, and I'm out of practice. And so that's sort of how I feel. And exactly, there you go.
Except maybe graffiti writers.
Exactly. I work too hard, but you just jump up and be like, you do what I do. I mean, you could do it, but like, I'd sacrifice 14 years of my life to be on this stage. Shoot. Worked hard to get here. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I wasn't right here at the beginning. I might have missed some of the introduction, but I'm an English teacher in middle school, and I was wondering if you could give me an advice on how to reach some of these kids, maybe of a background like yours or not, but they're in my room and I want them to be involved and I want to get to them.
Yeah, for sure. How can I help you reach some of the kids? So here's the thing. All right, first of all, I don't know. I try to be as honest as possible about not having any answers, right? But I will say this, and I was just talking about this yesterday to a group of librarians. When I was growing up, we all hated Brussels sprouts. Like the worst thing in the world were steamed Brussels sprouts. First of all, they smell like poop, and second of all, they taste even worse. And then I got older, and my mother started putting Brussels sprouts in grease, which is how you get them at restaurants now. Brussels sprouts is always a feature item on every restaurant menu now. There's been a revolution of the Brussels sprout, and the reason why is because people have started to fry them. People put them in grease now, fry them up, they make sauces for them. They put bacon in it, right? All this stuff. And I asked my mother, like, well, shoot, after you done fried up the Brussels sprouts, all the nutritious value of it is gone. And my mother said, well, maybe I'm not trying to give you nutrition. Maybe I'm trying to change the way you think about Brussels sprouts, right? And so what I would say to you is our job sometimes is to divorce ourselves from the fact that I've got to constantly be gifting young people with tools and equip them with, I'm imparting lessons upon them. Sometimes it's about, look, you hate reading. My job is to figure out how to help you not hate reading. The rest of it we can get to. But I got to figure out how to get you engaged. And in order to do that, sometimes you got to pull back, right? You got to put a little grease in the pot, right? So if that means you got to have them reading rap lyrics in your class, then that's what it is. If that means you got to have them reading comic books or the athletes reading Sports Illustrated in the sports section of ESPN magazine, then that's what it is. Our job is not to just promote literature, which is what we all do. Our job is to promote literacy, and there's a difference, right? There's a difference. Literacy is what will help them way more than what literature will do. All right, any other questions? Thank you for your question, brother. I appreciate you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Right. Man. So the question is basically the own voices question. What do I think about writers writing outside of their identity, et cetera, et cetera? Here's the thing. So this is a super complicated issue, but it's also an issue that we all take different stances on. And honestly, to be completely honest with you, where I stand is I'm never going to tell nobody what they can and can't write because ain't nobody ever going to tell me what I can and can't write. I refuse. So I'm very careful. What I will say is, if you decide to write outside of your identity, you have to understand that what that does is that it opens you up for critique, right? So just because you decide to make that leap, do it. It's your art, it's your craft, right? Do your work, do your research, show some respect to the identity in which you are trying to portray, right? I find that it's funny that human beings, especially writers, will sit down and we'll dig through every single part of if I'm trying to describe a car from the 1930s, I will give you every single detail and research the detail about the car from the 1930s, but I won't research the culture in which I'm writing about. Right, which is a strange thing to me. So I think we have to do more work in taking care and being careful of what it is we're trying to portray, but understanding that you will get it wrong. And when you do, there's a way for us to have healthy critique. And you have to be game for healthy critique. Don't close up. Be game for healthy critique so that you don't make the mistake twice. But we all have to do what we have to do as artists. I'm never going to tell nobody they can't do what they want to do. So thank you for your question. That's a tough one. I'm sure right now all my friends are like, that's not what you're supposed to tell her. But it is what it is. Any other question? Yes, ma'am. What was my favorite book to write? Oh my God, it's like asking your mama who her favorite child is. You know what? Okay, so here's the truth. The truth is my favorite book to write, it's separate. My favorite book that I've written is The Boy in the Black Suit, which is a book that most people haven't read, but it's my favorite of the lot. Because the whole book is about a boy who feels. That's it. I think for me, if anyone's read all of my books, the one through line you'll see is that there's always a deconstruction of masculinity. I'm constantly trying to poke and prod at what it means, what this sort of image of masculinity in our country and in our world. And so the books are always about boys where I'm chipping away at some of that. I'm trying to chip away at some of that stuff in every single book that I write. And Boy in the Black Suit, I think, was an opportunity for me to just talk about a boy who's in pain and who's hurting and who doesn't know what to do with the emotion of grief, and no one is around him to help him. And so all he can do is feel, constantly feeling, 300 pages of feeling around a boy, which I think is just important. We need to see that. So that's my favorite book. Now, my favorite book that I wrote, I don't know. All American Boys was it took us 6 weeks. I wrote that book in 6 weeks, Brendan and I. That was up there. And Ghost was really, really fun just because it's different than all the other books, and it's just a very different kind of story. And so I loved writing. And I mean, this is hard. I mean, come on. As Brave as You is fun because it's about me and my older brother, right? So if anybody read it, that's all. Most of that's true. So yeah, they're all different. That's the safe answer. They're all different, especially in their own way. You know. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Whenever I talk about when I was the greatest, kids check it out right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that you're not shifting to permanently middle school characters.
Nah,
You're gonna go back to high school kids.
Nah.
Okay, just checking.
Nah, that's you know what? I was thinking about that yesterday because I'm working on some other middle grade stuff, and I'm like, I wonder if people think that I'm like not going to be back to the YA. So there's a YA coming out next year. It's called Long Way Down, and it's really, really cool. It's a novel in verse, and it's really fun and cool. I don't want to give too much away. And then there's Spider-Man. I don't know if you guys heard that news, but I'm writing. So Black Spider-Man's coming out, and that comes out in August. I think August. Oh, this is on camera. They're like Marvel's gonna be like, dude, but I think it's August. I think it's August of 2017, and that's also YA. So that's, and then I've got some other stuff in the pipeline. So the YA thing is, I'm working for sure. Yep. What am I reading right now? Okay, so a bunch of stuff. So Colson Whitehead's, Whitehead's here, and so I'm reading Underground Railroad. Yo, it's crazy. It was wild, and so that's amazing, and it's nominated for the National Book Award long list, and for the Kirkus, I think. And I'm reading Yaji Asi's Homegoing. She's also here somewhere, and it's also amazing. These are all like adult books, but quote unquote literary novels. And I'm reading. I just finished this book called The Vegetarian. Wild. Has anybody read that? It won the Man Booker. Crazy. Wild, yo. And I'm also reading Sarah Zar's new book. I'm reading Brendan Kiley's new book again now that it's actually out. I just finished another Brooklyn, which I finished a month ago, and I've read it probably 3 or 4 times since. Jackie Woodson. A bunch. I'm reading like 5 or 6. I try to read as many as at the time, just kind of go through and figure out. Because all I do is read for stealing, right? You read to steal. So I'm always trying to like pick. So I'm reading on a whole different reason. I'm like, what are people doing that I think is working, so I can like put it in my own stuff. So yeah. You got any suggestions for me? What are you reading? What is it? You're reading Hamilton? Well, that's what's up. C.S. Lewis. Word. That's who I should go back and read some C.S. Lewis. His essays are my favorite, though, for sure. Yep. Man, you know what? I'm an old school. So here's the thing. I believe that writing, and I believe that everything that we do, everything that we're great at is about habit. If LeBron James was here, right, if he walked in the door, I'd be like, yo, so what you do this morning? And it'd be rhetorical. Because the truth is that I know what he did this morning. Right? He was at the gym, and he was probably shooting thousands of jumpers. And so for me, I'm extremely habitual. So I get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock every single morning. I have the same cup of coffee. I have the same breakfast. I do all the same things. I sit down around 7:30, 8 o'clock. I work until about 2 o'clock, 2:30 every single day. And the reason why is because I believe that, like, if I'm LeBron James and I'm shooting jump shots around jump shot number 50, my body is going to know what to do. It's going to adjust itself to shooting a jump shot, right? So every time I miss, my body will make an adjustment, and eventually my body will activate its muscle memory to do its job. The same goes for the brain, right? If the brain is a muscle, then my belief is that if I get up and do the same things every single day, that I don't have to go searching for my creativity at 9 o'clock in the morning, like, oh God, I'm banging my head, I have writer's block. For me, it's like, no, I wake up, the brain knows what to do. The creative part of myself turns itself on, and I get busy every single day. But it's about habit, it's about routine, and it's about discipline. And so inspiration need not enter my space because practice and craft dwell there. And that's sort of how I do it. Which is also why there's so many books coming out, because there's so many books being written, So, got you. We got one more question. I got in the back. Who am I listening to? Travis Scott. I know everybody's like, it's funny, right? Because whenever you're in a room like this, people are like, listening to? Who are you reading, right? I'm listening to Travis Scott. I'm listening to a lot of reggae music. I listened to a bunch of like 70s soul stuff and like funk. I really think that the biggest disservice in American music has been the underrated, like the underrating of funk music, the history of funk music in this country. Seriously, everybody should go back and listen to like all the Parliament stuff, all the George Clinton stuff. Really listen to what they were doing. We're talking about geniuses. And so I've been listening to a lot of like War and George Clinton and all the 70s funk music because I think that they were tapping into something that I think we have all grossly overlooked for a very, very long time. Good question. All right, y'all. I hope y'all had a good time. Later.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.